The man was a licensed professional hunter, yet he spent his days at home streaming video games. It all started on the day he graduated. Congratulations on completing the Hunter Shield program. You are now an official E-rank hunter. He had never been naturally gifted, so he worked twice as hard as everyone else to make up for it. As a result, his knowledge of dungeons and monsters became second to none. That was supposed to be his greatest achievement, yet it became a punchline in front of the entire media. I think you misunderstood, kid. An E-rank hunter simply holds a hunter's license. You're not eligible to participate in official hunter activities, no matter how impressive your academic record is. An E-rank hunter cannot defeat a single monster. That was why, 7 years ago, he gave up on being a hunter and became a gaming streamer instead, but now he was facing unemployment once again. Thank you for your continued support of Monsters Block Monsters. After 11 p.m. tonight, the Monsters Block Monsters servers will be permanently shut down. Why was this happening? This was the job he had worked so hard to find after giving up on being a hunter. Monsters Block Monsters was a classic tower defense game. It featured a wide variety of monster types, and players battled each other by recruiting monsters to fight on their behalf. At first glance, it looked like a straightforward tower defense game, but monster stats, combinations, formations, and attack timing all demanded careful consideration. Recruited monsters could also be upgraded and enhanced, though the success rate was extremely low. The bigger issue was that no matter how powerful a monster you raised, once it died, it was gone for good. This was a round-based tower defense game, and the balance was absolutely terrible. A 3-star ogre getting beaten by a 1-star goblin happened more often than it should. In his opinion, the developer was clearly out of their mind. Yet it was precisely that brutal difficulty that made his streams profitable. But now the game was shutting down, and he had no idea what to do next. His viewers kept pushing him to go all out on this final day and then go back to being a hunter. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He wanted nothing more than to be a proper hunter, but as an E-rank he would never be allowed inside a dungeon. He pushed the thought aside. It was the game's final day anyway, so he decided to take on the hardest content the game had to offer. A hell difficulty raid called the Wave, where players had to defend their castle against an endless flood of monsters pouring through the gates. Players had to survive 700 waves of attacks. Since the game launched, no one had ever cleared it. No one had even reached wave 700. This was his last chance. After furious clicking, he finally reached wave 700 of the raid. An endless horde of monsters came pouring out of the portal. This was insane. So many monsters right from the start. He quickly ordered his archers to whittle them down from range, but the arrows that should have torn through the enemy barely made a dent in the horde. Against such a ferocious wave, the goblin archers were swallowed up almost instantly. Ding! Level 100 goblin archer has fallen. That goblin archer had taken so much effort to raise, but the monsters didn't care. They kept pushing toward the castle. Fortunately, he still had his heavy hitters on the field. A single strike took the head clean off a treant. Succubus Queen, level 130. From here, it's all yours. But he didn't see it coming. Hidden in the horde was a hellhound. One-on-one, there might have been a chance, but surrounded by the full horde, under those savage jaws, the Succubus Queen fell. So this was what Wave 700 was really like. No matter how many units he sent in, they all met the same end. They dropped one by one under the pressure of the horde. It looked like he had failed again. He had no monsters left to hold back the wave. All that remained was an empty castle. Just when he thought it was all over, a blinding light erupted from the center of the castle, and beneath that light sat the Sovereign, who had always been asleep on the throne. Ding! First attempt at Wave 700. The Sovereign has awakened, for you, and risen from her long slumber. Her royal guard stepped forward and presented her sword. In the next instant, an overwhelming presence burst from within her. He was stunned. The Sovereign was supposed to be nothing more than decoration. He had never heard of her waking from the throne, let alone picking up a weapon and fighting herself. What on earth was happening? Then, with a single strike, the Sovereign wiped out every monster charging toward her. She then leaped high into the air toward the horde behind them. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Not only had the Sovereign jumped into the middle of the horde, her power was absolutely terrifying. Every swing carried devastating force, cutting down the surrounding monsters at a frightening pace. She combined both speed and strength into a fighting style that was nothing short of monstrous. The monsters crumbled before her like they were made of paper, sliced to pieces under the flash of her blade, as her final attack was unleashed. The last monster was dispatched with ease. The only things left in the hall were monster corpses and the Sovereign, standing there without a scratch. Congratulations, player. Wave 700 cleared. He stared at the screen in disbelief. Did you guys see that? The Sovereign, who we all thought was just decoration, turned out to be the most powerful ally in the game. But then he noticed the stream had cut out at some point and his mouse wasn't responding. He could only see a message from a viewer that read, "Many thanks to the player known as What Kind of Garbage Game Is This? Thanks to you, the Sovereign has awakened from her long sleep. Now a new journey can finally begin with you." He was completely lost. Was this viewer seriously that into the game's lore? Then another message popped up, its content perfectly in sync with what was on screen. We hope the viewers will continue to support us. As the viewer left the stream, everything returned to normal. He wasn't sure what to make of it, but this was his last time playing the game anyway. But then something happened right before his eyes that he could barely believe. Something resembling the portals from the game suddenly appeared. Just as he braced himself for monsters to come charging through, it transformed into a system panel. Monsters block, monsters sync complete. New skills acquired. Please choose conversation with the sovereign or deal with the sovereign. Were these really his new skills? Had he actually reawakened? In that moment, a wave of conviction surged through him. 7 years ago, when he was told he couldn't participate in hunter activities, he had gone out of his way to consult experts and learned that some hunters awakened their skills much later in life. It was rare, but when it happened, their rank would rise along with it. This was what was known as a reawakening, one of the rarest events imaginable. He didn't know why it was happening, but if fate was giving him another shot, he was going to grab it with both hands. Sorry everyone, this is my last stream, because I'm going back to being a full-time hunter. Name, Kim Han-ul. Strength, 10. Agility, 6. Stamina, 13. Intelligence, 5. Skill, Regeneration LV1. Contracted Throne, none. Looking at his base stats left him speechless. He had just reawakened, so why hadn't his stats changed at all? Just then, a new window popped up. Would you like to view information on your new skills? New skills, forget the base stats. Give him one high-level skill and he could take on the world. He clicked to view. New skills. 1. Conversation with the sovereign. 2. Deal with the sovereign. He stared at the skill names completely baffled. What was this supposed to mean? Curious, he clicked on deal with the sovereign, but an error window popped up instead. Skill cannot be activated due to a lack of gold. What was going on? He had never heard of a skill that cost gold to use. How was he supposed to work with this? It wasn't like he could just ask someone. Then he suddenly remembered that person, the viewer who had left him that message after he cleared the game. Maybe he could help, so he went live again. The viewer joined the moment he went live, as if he had been waiting. Good morning, Mr. What kind of garbage game is this? Just as he expected, the viewer was still there. He cut the stream and sent the viewer a private message. His reawakening had happened right after the viewer showed up. That meant his reawakening might somehow be connected to this person. He decided to be direct. This might sound strange, but I had a reawakening yesterday. Do you know anything about reawakenings? The reply came quickly. He said he did. That confirmed it. What had happened to him was connected to this person. He knew that awakenings were beyond human control, which meant this person was most likely connected to a throne. So he was the one behind this? But why him of all people? His mind was full of questions. He typed again. Why did this happen? No matter how I think about it, I can't figure out what you get out of this. The moment he sent the message, he couldn't believe what happened. He was pulled into another space entirely. An invisible hand lifted him gently, and an ethereal voice spoke. Because the sovereign chose you, and it was thanks to you that the sovereign was able to awaken. That only confused him more. What had he done that could possibly have awakened the sovereign? Was he talking about the sovereign from Monsters Block Monsters? All of this was tied to the game. The next moment he was back in his room. Things may be confusing right now, but you'll understand in time. Mr. Han-ul, think of the skills you've received as a gift from a higher power. He didn't particularly care about that. Can you just tell me how to use the skills first? As for the activation conditions, conversation with the sovereign is a skill that takes time to master. Then why can't I activate the other one either? It says I don't have enough gold. The mysterious viewer replied with nothing but a question mark. He reached into the void and pulled out an ancient book, apparently searching for an answer within its pages. It appears there has been an error. An error? What did that mean? Don't worry. I'll correct it now. I'll grant you 50 gold as your starting bonus. Once you have the gold, you can activate the skill. The details will become clear once you do. I look forward to seeing what you'll do from here. The viewer left the stream. It all felt like a dream. So that person really was connected to his reawakening, and the sovereign he kept mentioning must be some kind of throne. While he was still processing everything, his starting bonus arrived. Starter pack received, 50 gold. Gold requirement met. Deal with the sovereign has been activated. A monster roster appeared before him, each entry showing a name and a gold cost. He froze. The interface looked almost identical to the recruitment shop in Monsters Block Monsters. Even most of the available monsters were the same. In the game, recruited monsters were summoned to the castle and used as combat units. Could he actually summon them in real life? If so, he would never have to worry about being too weak to fight again. It felt like he had just switched classes to summoner, except the kind that had to pay for every summon. With 50 gold on hand, he could just barely afford the cheapest option, a goblin slave. Then something caught his eye. Sovereign of Phantasm. Recruitment cost, 999,999,999 gold. Required a sovereign who had wiped out every monster in the game. As much as he wanted her, one look at that price and affection requirement made him drop the idea immediately. The real question was how to earn gold in this system. In Monsters Block Monsters, there were two ways to earn gold. One was completing dungeon missions for rewards, and the other was hunting monsters and selling the loot. If the same rules applied in reality, he would need to hunt real monsters to earn gold. The problem was that on his own, he couldn't take down even the weakest monster. That made the goblin slave his only option. He clicked recruit without hesitation. Ding! Goblin slave successfully recruited. Summon monsters can be resummoned at no additional gold cost. Summoning your goblin slave now. A terrifying surge of energy engulfed the room. He watched in disbelief. Even summoning the lowest tier monster produced a force this overwhelming. So this was his first summon. The scene shifted. He was now at the Hunter Association building. Hunter Kim Han-ul, let me confirm once more. You are an E-rank hunter and you intend to work alone, correct? Given your qualifications, only 4 requests are currently available to you. He glanced at the list and picked one without hesitation. No backup can be dispatched to that area in an emergency. Are you absolutely sure? Yes, completely sure. Please register me. After a quick registration process, he left the Hunter Association building with a sense of excitement. Mission: exterminate the goblins occupying the mountain behind the village. Rank: 1. Client, Village Chief. He arrived at the location the client had described before long. A villager came running out of the rice fields. Welcome, Hunter. Thank you for making the long trip out to this remote little village. We've had that request posted for a while now, and you're the only one who agreed to come. Because of those monsters, we haven't been able to gather wild vegetables on the other side of the mountain for an entire week. It was no surprise no one else had taken the job. The trip was long and the pay was poor. Not many hunters would travel this far out just to take down a few goblins. Are you really alright going alone, Hunter? Those goblins aren't as easy as they sound. I'm worried you might get hurt on your own. Don't worry, Chief. I promise I'll take care of every one of those monsters for you. After saying goodbye to the village chief, he headed toward the forest where the goblins were reported to be. According to the information, they should be somewhere nearby. Just then, he heard something odd. When he turned to look, he could hardly believe what he saw. 3 goblins were casually drinking from a mountain spring like they didn't have a care in the world. This was nothing like what he had read in the books. A little unexpected, but nothing he couldn't handle. All he needed to do now was summon his unit. He reached into his system space and pulled out a blue orb. You're up. Go, goblin slave. The orb shot toward the monsters, but then dropped weakly at their feet. What was happening? The 3 goblins stared at the glowing orb in front of them, completely confused, then quickly spotted him standing nearby. He had used the wrong method to summon. This system hadn't given him any instructions, and he had just assumed throwing it would be enough. He was in serious trouble now. Running at this point was pointless. He had no choice but to fight on his own. But could he actually do it? Fine, let's do this. The goblins were already on him. Just as a claw was about to pierce him, Goblin Slave successfully summoned. In the next instant, the charging goblin was sent flying by a single blow. When he first started playing Monsters Block Monsters, the first monster he ever recruited was also a Goblin Slave. Because it was his first, he had poured everything into it, equipping it with every rare item he could find. Thanks to that, this one unit alone had carried him through Wave 100. Now he had it again. Gano's inventory: Windhelm a rank, Raven Leather Armor a rank, Raven Cloak a rank, Raven Leather Boots a rank, Club of Hercules a rank. His first goblin was in full force. A single strike took out 2 wild goblins instantly. The last one witnessed everything, and bolted in terror, but there was no way Gano was letting it escape. Skill: Raven's Wings activated. A pair of invisible wings sprouted from Gano's feet, and he dove downward at full speed. Within seconds, he had caught up to the goblin that had already put distance between them. In the moment their eyes met, the wild goblin was crushed with one swing, and just like that, every goblin had been dealt with. The scene was brutal enough to leave him frozen. Gano was that powerful. Gano cracked a small smile, and slowly walked over. Nice work, Gano. You really are something else, being my very first recruit and all. But when Gano reached him, he raised one hand as if trying to say something. What's this? Don't tell me you want a hug. One look at those longing eyes told him he was exactly right. Ding. Gano's affection: 20%. There was an affection system? This wasn't a dating sim. What was the point of that? Then the system displayed a new message. When affection reaches its maximum, you will gain a new skill. His eyes lit up the moment he read, new skill. Who's the best? Gano is the best. You are absolutely amazing out there. Ding. Gano's affection increased by 10. Anyway, the wild goblins were dead, but nothing had dropped. Maybe earning gold here worked differently than in the game. While he was puzzling over it, Gano mumbled something unintelligible beside him, then reached into each goblin corpse and pulled out a handful of stones. He handed over 3 blue stones, but he had no idea what they were for. When he looked in the direction Gano was pointing, he was surprised to find the portal from the game had appeared again. Gano took the stones and tossed them into the portal. 3 lowest grade mana stones sold, 30 gold earned. So that was how it worked. Unlike in the game, real-world monsters drop mana stones which could be sold through the portal for gold. He reached over and patted Gano with a word of praise. Gano's affection increased by 5. Good. Now all he needed was proof of completion and he could head back. But just then, a deep thunderous roar echoed from deep within the forest, followed by a tremor that shook the entire forest. What was going on? Were there more goblins somewhere? As they stood watching the depths of the forest with growing unease, the trees in front of them began toppling one by one. This was no goblin. Something far more powerful was coming. The next moment left him stunned. A creature the size of a small mountain blocked out the sky and slowly moved toward them. They were in serious trouble. What was an ogre berserker doing here? This creature was only supposed to appear in B-rank missions or higher. Then he noticed something was off about it. Its body was covered in wounds of all sizes, and its face bore deep gashes aimed at vital spots. It must have just fled here from another fight, but even in this condition, it was clearly beyond anything he could handle. To make things worse, Gano only had 3 minutes before returning to the Sovereign's castle. Should he run while there was still time, or... Before he could decide, Gano walked straight toward the ogre berserker. He hadn't expected that, even faced with something this powerful. Gano would move forward with the same calm confidence. Alright, I'm trusting you on this one. Fight with everything you've got. Skill, Raven's wings activated. He shot toward the ogre berserker at full speed. The monster was furious that this tiny creature dared challenge it. It raised the tree trunk it was carrying and swung it hard at Gano. But at the very last moment, Gano changed direction and leaped high into the air, landing directly above the ogre berserker's head. He raised the club of Hercules and dove straight down. As every ounce of Gano's strength poured into the strike, the weapon came crashing down onto the ogre berserker's arm. Just as the ogre berserker thought it had absorbed the blow, the bones in its body began snapping one by one, until even the bones in its hands shattered. The force was so terrifying that he nearly got caught in the shockwave himself, and just like that, the ogre berserker that had seemed so unstoppable was brought down in a single blow. He stood there completely stunned, then quickly ran over to check. Gano, that was incredible. Now it was time to collect the gold. Just as Gano was about to hand over the mana stones from the ogre berserker's body, the timer ran out and Gano was pulled back to the castle. Gano summoned cooldown, 24 hours. He picked up the mana stones, and the trading portal opened again. He tossed the stones inside. 1 mid-grade mana stone sold, 100 gold earned, current gold, 130. First sale of a mana stone containing an ogre berserker's essence. Bonus reward granted, 1 premium chest. In Monsters Block Monsters, the premium chest was the only way to obtain rare items, but the drop rate was so low that it drove players to despair. As the reward triggered, a golden chest fell from the sky. But seeing it didn't excite him the way he expected, because even the best equipment from the chest could only be used by recruited monsters in the game. Then it was as if the system had read his mind, because a new message popped up. Items obtained from premium chests can now be equipped by the player. If that was true, then pulling a legendary item could make him just as powerful as Gano. While he was still thinking it over, 4 hunters came running out of the forest. Keep up, the tracks lead straight ahead, but they all stopped dead at what they saw. The ogre berserker their team had been chasing lay on the ground, and standing beside it was a young man. He recognized one of them immediately. Yun-Su An, captain of the Pungbak Guild's 2nd Unit A rank. They had definitely been chasing that ogre berserker. He needed to get out of there, but the moment he turned to leave, they surrounded him. Tell me, did you take down this ogre berserker? The troll their whole team had barely managed to injure had been taken down alone by this unremarkable-looking young man. 3 B-rank hunters working together hadn't been able to finish it off. Even a wounded ogre berserker had B-rank level combat strength. That meant the person in front of her was at least A rank. With that thought in mind, Yun-Suan extended her hand. Hi, I'm Suan from the Pungbak Guild. The moment their hands touched, a voice rang out in Suan's head. The Archangel of the Heavens has taken a strong interest in the person before you. Suan was stunned. A divine being was interested in this person, but he looked so ordinary. She decided to test the waters. Actually, this ogre berserker was our target. We were worried it might cause damage to the area. Lucky you got to it in time. Just lucky timing, it was barely alive by the time it reached me. He was lying. He was clearly hiding something. In that case, there was only one move. I'll give you the reward for this ogre berserker kill. He was stunned. Was she serious? He had basically stolen their guild's target, but what she said next surprised him even more. In exchange, I'd like to ask you something. She pulled out her phone with a hint of shyness. Could I get your contact info? He stood there completely speechless. The scene shifted. He returned to the village with the mission complete. Thank you for getting rid of that threat for us. Don't mention it. Actually, there's something I wanted to ask you. Where is the Suryumbi? You really did your research before coming. Just follow this road and you'll find it. That place is known for bringing good fortune. If you need a little luck, it'll do the trick. He wasn't much of a believer in things like that, but this situation was different. Better safe than sorry. It couldn't hurt to try. Then a message came in from Hunter Yun-Su An. Mr. Kim Han-ul, this is Suwon from the Pungbak Guild. As we discussed, we'll handle disposal of the ogre berserker's remains. Please reach out when you come by the guild. But his mind was entirely on the chest. The odds of pulling high-tier gear were low, but at least give him something decent. Opening your golden chest. As the chest opened, a beam of golden light shot out. The gear from these chests varied widely in quality, but the highest possible tier was S-rank. S-rank items typically radiated a golden glow, and that same golden light was shining right in front of him. But then a massive surge of red light erupted within it. What tier was this item? The scene shifted. He was back home. The mission had been extremely rewarding, netting him a substantial amount of gold. But many monsters in the recruitment panel were still locked. Why was that? The only options available were a goblin warrior and an ogre berserker warrior. Don't tell him he had to defeat a monster before he could recruit it in the system. If that was the case, building a stronger roster was going to be a serious pain. Then there was the item he had pulled from the chest. Beholder's glasses. Rarity, unique, type, accessory. Description: crafted by a beholder sage who suffered from both astigmatism and nearsightedness. The ultimate gift for any beholder. Stats: all attributes +5. Skill: Sage's Eye, usable twice per day. This was a top-tier item almost no one had ever seen. Based on the game's lore, its value far exceeded anything of comparable rank. He just had no idea what it actually did. He put them on to find out. The next moment, a surge of magical energy flooded into his eyes and all his stats jumped by 5. Sage's Eye allows you to view a target's stats and skills. Usable twice per day, no charges consumed when used on C-rank targets or below. He was thrilled. This was incredible. With the Sage's Eye, he could read an enemy's full information in the middle of a fight, but something was still bothering him. Why him? Nothing in this world came without a price. What was he going to have to give up in exchange for all this power? Warning: Warning. The wave is approaching. Players, prepare your defenses. He froze at the warning messages flooding his screen. It was the Monsters Block Monsters interface. Wave 701 will begin in 10 minutes. Players, prepare yourselves. Wave 701? What was going on? Wave 700 had already been terrifying. What would Wave 701 look like? If the player fails to repel the monster invasion, you will lose all of your power. Furthermore, this world will be destroyed by the monsters. He went completely still at the system message that had just appeared. It looked exactly like the one from Monsters Block Monsters. Was it telling him to stop the monsters right now? But why through a game? And that terrifying consequence. If he failed, would the world actually be destroyed because of him? This was completely absurd. The wave will arrive in 9 minutes and 23 seconds. Prepare to meet the invasion. He had no time to waste. Time to get ready. Monsters Block Monsters was a straightforward tower defense game at its core, where the player's goal was to stop monsters from reaching the castle. But because of its brutal difficulty, stopping those monsters required a well-thought-out strategy. Not only did monsters need to be placed in the right positions, but the castle's defensive structures had to be used efficiently. On top of that, there was a wide variety of items to factor in. Using all of these elements to build the right strategy for every situation was the true heart of the game. After some quick exploration, he got the hang of the new interface. Simply put, mouse and keyboard controls had been replaced with a touchscreen. By selling the mana stones he had collected, he had recruited 4 monsters. Including his original recruit, he now had 5 units to deploy in the castle, 3 goblin warriors, 1 goblin slave, and 1 ogre berserker. He stared at the roster. Every unit, except the goblin slave, which he had recruited with the starter pack, was a monster he had previously defeated. But 5 still wasn't enough. He tried to use his gold to recruit more. Ding! New monster recruitment is temporarily unavailable after receiving a wave alert. Seriously? Was he even supposed to win this? Displaying Wave 701 details. Count Gular and his elite force, the Dargon Wing unit, composed of 6-star Count Gular, 45-star Wyverns, and 25-star Half-Dragons. Star rating was a measure of combat power, representing a monster's raw fighting potential. If the gap was too wide, the battle would be a nightmare. Right now, he only had a 1-star Goblin and a 3-star Ogre Berserker. Under normal circumstances, the outcome would already be decided. Without enough gold or units, he couldn't even put together a basic strategy, just as he was losing hope. Special bonus: as the sole player, you will receive a special reward for this wave only. You may choose 1 defensive structure and 1 item. The chosen item will be distributed to all units. Note, only 1 piece of wearable equipment per slot is permitted. But he couldn't bring himself to feel relieved. Did they really think this bonus was enough to hold off Wave 701? This was beyond crazy. But since he had no other option, he would show them what a veteran of this game could really do. He had spent more time in this game than anyone. Anyone else might wonder how to possibly stop this wave under these conditions. But if it was him, miracles were still on the table. 54 seconds until the wave. With only these few units and 2 items. 15 seconds until the wave. He was absolutely going to hold them back. 1 second until the wave. He was ready. The wave began. The next moment, a swarm of wyverns came charging out, all of them flying straight for the castle. Riding one of the wyverns at the front was the wave boss himself, Count Gular. The wyverns at the front reached the castle, but were stopped cold by an invisible wall. The monsters couldn't get through. Count Gular was visibly impatient, and ordered the wyverns to attack the barrier. His strategy was working. Infinite Barrier, used to defend against incoming monster waves. Regardless of attack power, durability only decreases by 1 per hit. Current durability, 100. The Infinite Barrier was an incredibly fragile defensive structure, only available when your monster's average star rating was below 2. Players had mocked it as a beginner's tool. The wyverns gathered flames in their mouths and launched blazing fireballs at the barrier. Under the simultaneous assault of over a dozen wyverns, the barrier was instantly engulfed in flame, yet each hit only dropped the durability by 1. The real problem was the sheer number of enemies. The barrier only had 100% durability. If all 61 monsters attacked at once, it would drop below half instantly, but he had an answer for that. Tap like his life depended on it. The barrier had an interesting mechanic. Every tap restored 1 point of durability. As long as his tapping was fast enough, they would never break through. Defense handled. Now it was time to go on the offensive. A golden beam shot out from inside the castle, landing directly on a wyvern's head. 1 point of damage. Under normal circumstances, a goblin couldn't deal any damage to a wyvern at all, but 1 item made it possible. Hakon's Spoon. Rank A slot, 2-handed. Monsters equipped with this item can deal range damage regardless of their star rating. With this item, he could deal damage to the wyverns regardless of the star gap. The only downside was that the damage was a flat one. By his estimate, chipping away at the wave this way would take at least 60 hours. So now it came down to endurance. Would he collapse first? Or would the monsters be spooned to death first? Faced with this standoff, Count Gular had no good options, and could only order his forces to keep attacking. As time went on, he realized constant tapping was far harder than it sounded. He reached for some water to keep himself going, but the moment he moved, his body wouldn't respond. All other actions are restricted during gameplay. He was furious. Even his own body was being controlled by something else. One day he was going to destroy this game, once and for all. With no other choice, he kept tapping without any way to rest or recover. But could he really last 60 hours like this? Maybe an ordinary person would have given up all hope facing a situation like this. But for Han-ul, the game had only just begun. On one side, the relentless monster attacks were chipping away at the barrier's durability. On the other, he was frantically tapping the screen to restore it. This kind of heart-pounding tension was exactly what he loved about this game. Before he knew it, over 2 hours had flown by. You infuriating, addicting game. Let's see who comes out on top in the end. He had been doing this for 12 hours straight, but winning would probably take another 48 hours of holding on. As time went on, the wyverns fell before him one by one. Seeing that, he finally felt at ease. At least it proved the strategy was working. All that was left now was a battle of endurance. Remaining monsters, 50. Remaining monsters, 30. Remaining monsters, 16. Remaining monsters, 2. All that remained now were the boss, Count Gular, and the wyvern at his feet. Watching his minions drop one by one right before his eyes, Count Gular's rage had reached its absolute peak. But at that very moment, Han-ul had dozed off from sheer exhaustion. Warning! Warning! Barrier durability down to 2. The goblin inside the castle wound up his arm, and hurled Hakon's spoon with everything he had at the last wyvern. But under Count Gular's command, the wyvern dodged it effortlessly. It then opened its jaws wide and began charging up. Before unleashing 2 fireballs at once, they slammed hard into the barrier. Current barrier durability, 0. Barrier is being dismantled. What a disaster! That was entirely my fault for letting my guard down. If he didn't act fast, the castle would be destroyed. At that critical moment, Gano charged forward, raising the club of Hercules high. He shot straight toward the enemy hovering in the air. Even though the enemy had a high star rating, it was already running on fumes. With Gano's top-tier gear, this was a fight worth taking. The moment Gano clashed with the enemy, Count Gular and his wyvern were obliterated in a single blow. Both of the last 2 enemies were taken out at the same time. Gano turned out to be even stronger than Han-ul had imagined. Ding! Congratulations on clearing wave 701. Seeing that, Han-ul could barely believe his own eyes. Did I actually pull it off? That was incredible! Overwhelmed with excitement, he collapsed to the floor the very next second. He had no idea how long he was out. Eventually, he slowly came back to his senses. His eyes were immediately locked onto the system window in front of him. Ding! Wave 701 reward summary. You defeated Count Gular and his Dargonwing unit. The Count never dreamed that he and his elite forces would be beaten to death by a spoon. Obtained 20 wyvern bones, 10 drake scales, 5 drake hearts. Looking at these rewards, Han-ul was puzzled. What was he even supposed to do with these materials? Just then, ding! Repel the monster wave completed. Play for over 50 hours completed. 3 more conditions must be met to unlock the skill, Conversation with the Sovereign. He didn't know what the other 3 conditions were, but he was one step closer to unlocking Conversation with the Sovereign. Ding! Verifying final reward. A blinding light burst from the system interface. Han-ul was stunned when he saw the final reward before him. Meanwhile, his phone sitting on the desk had somehow racked up 7 missed calls without him noticing. The scene shifted to the Hunter Association building. 2 hunters were waiting in the lobby. Yoon Soo-yuk, S-rank vice leader of the Pungbake Guild. How could an E-rank hunter possibly kill an ogre berserker? That guy has to be a fraud. Not necessarily. I heard he recently had a second awakening. And you actually believe that nonsense? Second awakenings are incredibly rare. Just then, Han-ul came running in from outside, buzzing with excitement. Sorry to keep you waiting. I've had some personal things going on and couldn't pick up my phone. After leaving my sister waiting for 3 whole days, you think a single sorry is enough? Brother, I already told you it was fine. Han-ul, just pretend my brother isn't here. As we discussed, we'll be giving you the reward for killing the ogre berserker. But first, you'll need to come with me to complete the registration. The registration staff, however, didn't buy it. How could an E-rank hunter kill an ogre berserker alone? We'll need to test your stats to see if you're actually capable of hunting monsters. The scene cut to them standing before a massive crystal. Han-ul hadn't been tested since his second awakening. This was a perfect chance to find out what rank he'd actually reached. The enormous red crystal was essentially a mana measurement device. As he pressed his palm against the surface of the crystal, a brilliant glow erupted from within. Measurement complete. Analysis result, Han-ul's mana rank is S rank. Everyone in the room was stunned. Han-ul never imagined he'd be this lucky. All because he'd managed to hold off wave 701. The system had rewarded him with a brand new skill. Lord's Afterimage. Inherit the stat bonuses of the strongest monster from the previous wave. Can be used for 30 minutes per day. Once the time is up, you must wait until the next day to use it again. The strongest monster in wave 701 was the 6-star Count Gular. While his rank was being tested, Han-ul secretly activated Lord's Afterimage. His stats shot up dramatically in an instant. Time remaining 24 minutes and 49 seconds. With this skill, he was no longer the nobody he used to be. Even without recruiting monsters, he had the power of an S rank. It only lasted 30 minutes a day. But to anyone who didn't know the truth, he was a legitimate S-rank hunter. His test results left the Yoon siblings viewing him in a completely different light. This proves it beyond any doubt. I killed that ogre berserker on my own. We'll send you the official re-evaluation results by tomorrow. At that point, Soo-yuk suddenly extended an offer, asking Han-ul to join the Pungbake Guild. But Han-ul hadn't thought about joining any organization yet. I'll have to think about it. And with that, he turned and walked away. News of his S-rank status spread across the internet almost immediately. He never thought he'd be famous one day. The Hunter Association also sent a text. Based on today's mana evaluation, Kim Han-ul's Hunter license has been upgraded from E rank to B rank. Effective immediately, participation in all S rank and below gates and dungeons is now authorized. He'd hoped to jump straight to S rank, but the association's rules only allowed a maximum of 3 ranks at a time. When Han-ul opened the live stream chat again, viewers immediately started talking. And of course, the topic was the S-rank hunter who had just appeared today. Apparently, Yoon Soo-yuk personally invited him to join the guild and got rejected. Alright guys, since we're on the topic of hunters, I actually have a question I want to ask everyone today. Now that I'm a hunter again, which dungeon should I take on first? You're not seriously thinking about streaming inside a dungeon, are you? That's not allowed. Right, under the Hunter Association's confidentiality agreement, streaming or recording directly violates the Hunter Protection Act. So I'll just post the clear proof afterward. And within the rules, I'll share what I'm allowed to. The viewers were thrilled. This was going to be exciting. The guilds always kept their dungeon secrets locked down tight. A viewer called Monster Stopping Hunter suggested, if you're picking a dungeon, it has to be the Mad Dargoon's Nest. But the next second, a notification popped up. Trash Game Bros Sasang fan donated 50,000 won. Ignore that guy. I say go to the Giant's Kitchen. Baldies are up donated 1 million won. Baldies are up suggested heading to the spider forest and ripping a leg off the queen. That'd make for some great content. The viewers immediately started arguing over their picks. Han-ul quickly jumped in and asked everyone to settle down. But just then, viewer 1 donated 10 million won. Han-ul was floored by that number. Good lord, who is this big spender? Viewer 1 entered the chat, making their presence known to everyone. So with a donation that big, which dungeon are you recommending? Viewer 1 replied slowly, the deepest part of the Garden of Meditation. The rest of the chat lost it. No one had ever successfully cleared that place. The Garden of Meditation dungeon had 3 zones: the entrance, the lake, and the deepest part. The entrance area was a relatively safe hunting zone, but the central lake was already said to be extremely dangerous, let alone the deepest part, which no one had ever cleared. From what I know, Yoon Soo-yuk of the Pungbak Guild was the first to clear the central lake, and in interviews, he admitted that clearing the central zone was already his absolute limit. And now they were asking Han-ul to take on the deepest part? That was simply impossible. Just then, viewer 1 spoke again. You don't actually need to clear the dungeon. Just reaching the deepest part of the Garden of Meditation counts as completing the task, and I'll give you all the help you need. The other viewers pushed back hard. Someone could die doing this. Don't fall for it, streamer. This is insanely dangerous. But if it was just a matter of reaching the deepest point and coming straight back, Han-ul thought he might be able to pull it off, especially with viewer 1's help. After thinking it through carefully, he decided his first target would be the Garden of Meditation. The scene cut to Han-ul registering at the Hunter Association building. He secured a spot for the next day's run into the Garden of Meditation without any trouble. But just as he was leaving, 2 strangers, a man and a woman, called out to him. Because his tested rank was a shocking S, Han-ul had become a target for multiple guilds. Even the Samurai Guild and the Segis Guild came to recruit him. The Samurai Guild and the Segis Guild were 2 of the country's top 3 guilds. Together with the Pungbak Guild from before, all 3 had now come knocking. Even so, Han-ul turned them all down. I'm sorry, I have something important to take care of right now, and with that he left. Joining a guild at this point would do him no good. It would only slow him down. His top priority right now was the Garden of Meditation. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Yoon Soo-yuk, vice leader of the Pungbak Guild, picked up Han-ul's call. I'm planning to head to the deepest part of the Garden of Meditation dungeon. I was hoping you could share some useful information with me. Information? That's precious intel for our guild. Why would I tell you anything? Because I have a way to clear the entire Garden of Meditation dungeon. Soo-hyuk froze. Are you serious? Absolutely. If I successfully clear it, I'll tell the media that the Pungbak Guild helped me get there. So you do have something to back that up, but can you really clear it alone? I guarantee it, no problem. Alright then, I'll take the gamble, but first you need to join my guild. Before he could even finish, Han-ul turned him down. Han-ul told him the other 2 major guilds had also come to recruit him. Soo-yuk was stunned. Damn it, those 2 must have caught on too. Even so, they're going after him? With that, Soo-yuk decided to work with Han-ul instead. Let me be upfront. The intel I have only covers up to the central zone. I don't know anything about what lies beyond, and the dungeon may have changed over the past year. With that, Soo-yuk told Han-ul everything he knew. The scene shifted to Han-ul arriving at the entrance of the Garden of Meditation dungeon, where other hunters were already waiting. He made sure to put on the beholder's glasses, a ridiculous item that added 5 to all stats. When the bald man spotted Han-ul walking over, he turned and spoke up. Are you the one who signed up to tackle this dungeon alone? Nice to meet you. I'm Cho Kwang-soo from the Bulgul Guild. I can't stand people like you who just cut in line. Some people have waited a full month just to get enough members together and coordinate the schedule. And you just waltz right in because of your S-rank mana, so don't expect any help from us in there. An S-rank mana reading doesn't mean anything to us. That kind of label is useless in actual combat. He turned his back on Han-ul and went back to discussing the run with his teammates. Clearly, Han-ul's people skills were even worse than he'd thought. From their perspective, he really was an outsider. Normally, taking on a dungeon required meeting a minimum head count and booking a month in advance, so his sudden appearance made complete sense as something to resent. Either way, let me take a look at what you've got. Skill, Sage's Eye, activated. He scanned the group and saw they were all C-rank hunters. Fortunately, none of them would be able to follow him to the deepest part. If anyone got a look at his secrets, things could get complicated. Before long, the person in charge activated a spell. A massive surge of energy built up ahead of them, and the dungeon entrance was opened. Everyone get in quickly. This gate won't hold for long. Han-Ul was the last one to step through. This was his first time entering a dungeon. He was genuinely curious about what was inside. The Garden of Meditation. Capacity, 20 hunters. Type, conditional clear, breakthrough dungeon. The moment Han-Ul stepped in, Viewer 1 sensed it, watching over everything inside the dungeon like an all-seeing eye. Hunter Han-Ul, good luck. Per the Sovereign's request, the layout of the Garden of Meditation will be partially adjusted. Immediately, the entire dungeon began to shake violently. The scene shifted to the group now inside the dungeon. Kwang-So, who was leading the pack, suddenly sensed something was off. He could barely trust his own eyes. This is definitely not the main entrance area. What is going on? There was no way a lake like this would be at the main entrance. That meant they had ended up in an unknown zone. This was very strange, the intel from Suyuk said. The entrance stage was straightforward, just hunt the pig mallets out in the open field to clear it. But now something had gone wrong. At that moment, a system window appeared before everyone. Ding! Welcome to the lake zone of the Garden of Meditation, providing mission briefing. Due to excessive slaughter of the pig mallets, they have gone into hiding. Protect the pig mallets from the slaughterers before nightfall. Upon completion, you will pass through the lake zone and enter the deepest part of the dungeon. Failure will result in the elimination of all challengers. Everyone panicked reading that. Why did we get stuck with something like this? Boss, let's just quit. It's early enough that we can still bail and leave. But when Kwang-Su opened his status panel to give up, he found it was impossible. I've been trying to quit this whole time. There's just no way out. Current pig mallets remaining, 130. 2 pig mallets were killed by slaughterers. Current remaining, 128. Kwang-Su hurried over and asked Han-Ul if he had any idea what was going on. I don't know why things turned out this way either, but I do have information about the lake zone. If you want me to share it, I have one condition. Until this mission is complete, you follow my orders. While Kwang-Su and his group were still hesitating, current pig mallets remaining, 124. First, let's get familiar with the terrain. Han-Ul quickly sketched a rough map on the ground. There's a large lake at the center. Streams from all across the forest flow into it. Kwang-Su looked puzzled, wondering how Han-Ul knew all of this. I have a scouting skill that lets me sense the surrounding environment. What no one knew was that this map actually came from the Lord's Castle of Illusions. Our mission is to rescue the pig mallets from the slaughterers. First, we need to find them. They live in wetlands, so based on their habits, these 8 areas are likely where they hang out. We need to find them before the slaughterers wipe them out and bring them together to protect them. While Han-Ul was still talking, the pig mallets were already down to 121. If there are no questions, let's split up and start searching. Kwang-Su immediately ordered his teammates to spread out and head to the marked locations on the map. Han-Ul stayed behind on his own. The Lord's Castle of Illusions has provided hidden intel on the Meditation Lake. A hidden quest exists. Find the quest and claim its reward. What could this hidden quest possibly be? As he searched around, he spotted a group of lizardmen armed with weapons. Were these the slaughterers hunting down the pig mallets? The lizardmen were only D rank individually, but together their combined strength became formidable. Just as Han-Ul was about to steer clear of them, he heard someone else nearby. We can't just go running around on orders from some guy we don't even know. Damn it. These two had gone off on their own and wandered straight into this area. The long-haired man was still feeling smug about it when a flash of steel cut through the air and a lizard man appeared out of nowhere and took off his head. His companion froze in horror at the sight. Snapping back to his senses, he charged in furiously with a raised fist. He threw a powerful, thundering punch, but out of nowhere, a hand shot out and grabbed it. Lizardman gained swarm bonus. Rank elevated from D to B. The man stared in terror at what was unfolding before him. 4 monsters had completely surrounded him. With a violent yank, the lizard man tore off the man's arm. Just as the lizard man raised its weapon for the killing blow, a hand calmly caught it, and that hand belonged to none other than Han-Ul's top fighter, Goblin slave Gono. While the stunned man stared at the goblin in confusion, Han-Ul walked over from not far away. I'm pretty sure the search area I assigned you wasn't here. Guess I shouldn't have expected too much from you. Go get yourself patched up. I'll handle things here. The man clutched his severed arm and fled. Gono, we don't have much time. Let's wrap this up fast. The next second, Gono launched forward. Skill, Raven's Wings, activated. Using blinding speed, he darted back and forth around the lizardmen continuously. The lizardmen's reflexes couldn't keep up with that terrifying pace at all. Gono immediately found an opening and brought his weapon down hard, obliterating one of them from the waist up. Before the rest could react, he took out another one. Just as an enraged lizardman slashed at him with its claws, Gono slid under the attack to dodge it, and countered with a backhand strike, taking down another one. Watching that, Han-Ul relaxed. This wasn't a fight, it was a slaughter. Just then, one of the lizardmen swung its blade and came charging straight at Han-Ul. Apparently these monsters weren't dumb. They knew to go straight for the head. Too bad you picked the wrong target. Skill, Lord's Afterimage, activated. A surge of overwhelming power erupted from within him. He drove his fist straight into the monster's chest. Lord's Afterimage, the stats of the strongest monster from the previous wave have been added to your own. Effect time remaining, 29 minutes 49 seconds. By that point, Gono had already finished off the remaining lizardmen. Good work, Gono, keep it up. Gono's affection increased by 10 points. After Han-Ul sold all the mana stones he collected, current gold, 370 grams, first sale of a mana stone containing a lizardman soul. The Lord's Castle of Illusions has issued one premium draw ticket. Time until Goblin Slave returns to the castle, 7 minutes. No time to waste. If Gono got recalled, that would be a problem. Just as Han-Ul was stressing over it, Gono flashed a sly grin. You can pay gold to extend Gono's summon time. Cost, 5 gold per 10 minutes. So that was an option? As long as he could afford it, he could keep his summons working overtime. Just then, something stirred in the forest. A whole herd of pig mallets came running toward them. What was happening? Why did they suddenly show up here? And with so many of them, how was Han-Ul supposed to get them somewhere safe? To Han-Ul's surprise, Gono started making sounds at the pig mallets, some kind of jabbering. It seemed like monsters could actually communicate with each other. After Gono apparently made the introduction, the pig mallets looked at Han-Ul like he was their savior, practically trembling with excitement. They immediately crowded around him as if begging for his help. And just like that, Han-Ul led the entire group of pig mallets toward the center of the lake. Along the way, they also took out another pack of lizardmen. The Lord's Castle of Illusions has run out of funds for purchasing mana stones. Mana stones cannot be obtained through hunting until funds are replenished. Unit capacity for the Lord's Castle of Illusions has been reached. Lizardmen warriors, 10/10, lizardmen crossbowmen, 5/5, lizardmen spearmen, 5/5. Han-Ul never thought the day would come when the castle would run out of gold. On top of that, there was a cap on how many of each monster type he could command. That meant there was no point hunting more lizardmen going forward. What mattered now was keeping these pig mallets safe. He had 60 with him, and the total remaining was 70. That meant the others had only managed to save 10. Just then, the pig mallets on Han-Ul's side suddenly went wild and bolted toward the center of the lake for no apparent reason. He didn't know why, but he had to follow and keep them safe. When they reached the central area of the lake, the others were already there. Nightfall has arrived. The slaughterers have ceased their hunt. Remaining pig mallets, 70. Congratulations on successfully protecting the pig mallets from harm. Mission complete. Hidden quest achieved. 70 or more pig mallets survived. Just as everyone was celebrating surviving and finally being able to leave this nightmare, the great tree at the center of the lake was thrust upward by a massive wave from below. The trial of meditation has officially begun. The previously calm lake erupted into a towering wave that swept toward everyone. In an instant, it swallowed Kwangsu and his group. Then it came crashing straight toward Han-Ul. Against a wave that massive, there was nothing he could do. But just when all seemed lost, the pig mallets beside him began to glow with a golden light. A barrier formed and held the wave back. The pig mallets you rescued from the slaughterers are expressing their gratitude. They will now serve as your shield and protect you. Endure this trial for 10 minutes alongside the souls you have gathered. Han-Ul had no idea they had this kind of power. He'd been wondering what the trial of meditation was all about. Now it made sense. There was a reason they were sent to save these little creatures. In other words, the more pig mallets you saved, the safer you'd be, which meant the others were in serious danger. Kwangsu already looked like he was barely holding on. He only had one pig mallet shielding him from the waves. Time remaining, 9 minutes. There was no way he could last that long. The others were in no better shape. Han-Ul had to find a way to save them. Hidden quest discovered, suppress the source of the trial. Find and defeat the monster at the bottom of the lake that is the source of this trial. The moment the monster is defeated, the trial will end immediately. This was clearly a message from the Lord's castle. In other words, the sovereign wanted Han-Ul to complete this hidden quest. He put on the beholder's glasses. He needed to figure out what the creature at the bottom of the lake actually was. A named monster has been detected. Name, Zenkaruk. Elite monster. Base stats, strength 25, agility 35, stamina 30, intelligence 90. Skills, cataclysmic wave LV1, cataclysmic storm LV1, tears of the ancient god LV5. This was actually a named monster. Named monsters were a breed apart. They possessed unique skills that other monsters didn't, making them incredibly difficult to deal with. As expected, the hidden quest wasn't going to be easy. Worst of all, Gono had no resistance to water-type attacks, which made fighting underwater a serious disadvantage. It was time to recruit someone new. Skill, deal with the sovereign, activated. The monster recruitment list appeared. There happened to be an ogre berserker with water resistance available. Unlike Gono, it came with no equipment of its own. Its base stats alone wouldn't be enough to take on a named monster. Han-Ul urgently needed an item to boost its stats, so he pulled out the premium draw ticket he'd obtained earlier. As he opened the chest, a golden light burst out. That meant he was about to receive an S-rank piece of equipment. When the light faded, an old, worn-looking hat appeared before him. Han-Ul was stunned when he saw it. The currents were growing more violent by the second. If he didn't act, the others weren't going to make it. No time to overthink it. He was going all in. Ding! 420 gold consumed. Recruitment successful, summoning Ogre Berserker. The next second, a terrifying beast appeared before him. He immediately equipped the item he just received onto it. But the moment it put the hat on, it collapsed to the ground. Han-Ul stared in confusion. What was happening? Meanwhile, Kwang Su couldn't hold on any longer and was swept away by the current. Han Ul had no choice but to charge in himself. Lord's afterimage had only 12 minutes left. He had to move fast. Pushing himself to the limit, he pulled Kwang Su straight out of the water, then he grabbed onto a nearby tree to hold his position. But the force of the current was far greater than he'd expected. Just as he was about to lose his grip, the ogre berserker arrived just in time, throwing his body against the current to block it. Then impossibly, the ogre berserker spoke. "My lord, are you alright? Forgive me for arriving late. Your humble servant bows before the King of Kings." Han Ul was floored. Just what had he recruited? Archmage Gandorf's hat. Rank S. Slot head. A relic of the Archmage who once saved a world from destruction. The moment a fool puts on this hat, even they become a genius. Intelligence plus 30. It's all thanks to your gift, my lord. The moment I put on this hat, it was as if I had been reborn. So please, give me your command. I will carry it out with everything I have. Before I give the order, I have one question. Can you use magic right now? Yes. I just used that tree trunk to cast a spell that held back the water. A smile spread across Han Ul's face. Listen carefully. Here is your first order. Break through this storm and advance toward the center of the lake. I'll be right behind you. I hear and obey, my lord. I will not fail you. The ogre berserker raised the tree trunk and began pushing forward relentlessly. Incredible. This was the first time Han Ul had ever seen anyone use a tree trunk as a magic staff. Since you've awakened your mind, let me give you a name. How about Odolph? Hearing that he finally had a name, Odolph was visibly moved. Please be at ease, my lord. I will spend my entire life repaying your kindness. Filled with excitement, Odolph moved even faster, pressing steadily toward the center. At that rate, they'd reach the center of the lake in no time. Meanwhile, Zen Karuk at the center of the lake sensed something was wrong. Someone is actually breaking through my water magic and getting this close to me. But getting in here is impossible. Zen Karuk activated another spell. The next second, the tree trunk in Odolph's hands was stopped cold. My lord, there is a special magic barrier ahead. My mana is not enough to overcome it. Who told you to fight it with magic? Try breaking through it with raw force. Odolph understood immediately and raised the tree trunk, slamming it into the magic barrier. The entire barrier shook. What? Anyone who can break through my water magic should be a mage. Judging by that shockwave, the enemy is quite powerful, but this cataclysmic wave is an insurmountable wall. This barrier can only be broken by combining powerful magic and physical force at the same time. Even among monsters, that combination is incredibly rare, let alone among humans. My defensive magic is unbreakable. But as Odolph unleashed both his magic and brute force simultaneously, cracks began to form across the barrier. That's it, Odolph, keep going. This barrier is almost done. Watching his barrier crumble, Zen Karuk began to panic. Impossible. How could a mage break through this barrier? But the next second, the barrier couldn't withstand Odolph's assault any longer. The entire thing shattered. For the first time, Zen Karuk got a clear look at who had destroyed it. What? Why is there an ogre berserker out there? It couldn't wrap its head around how an ogre berserker had managed to break through, and there was no way an ogre berserker should have been able to get through its water magic. Don't tell me it's an ogre berserker mage. We finally meet Zen Karuk. Ready to give up? Don't think just because you're in front of me that you've won. Breaking through that barrier must have drained you. My mana, however, is still full. With that, it activated a water-type spell. A massive ball of water gathered in the air above. My lord, the enemy's mana seems immense. What do we do? Actually, Odolph, can you use ranged magic? Odolph caught on immediately. He channeled all of his mana into the tree trunk and hurled it with full force. Zen Karuk didn't flinch. Trying to interrupt my spell with a tree trunk? How utterly foolish. I've already cast a defensive barrier around myself. A little magic like yours won't get through. But the very next second, the devastating strike tore straight through everything. Zen Karuk couldn't believe it had actually lost. Just how terrifying a monster was this? By the way, Odolph, what spell was that? The power was insane. Oh, that wasn't magic at all. I just threw a tree trunk. Back at the Pungbek Guild headquarters. Boss Kang Wu, I'm telling you, this is the real deal. We have to get him. You said his name was Kim Han Ul, right? Choi Kang Wu, S rank. Guild master of the Pungbek Guild. It seemed like it was all over. Odolph handed Han Ul the mana stone that had dropped from the boss. Han Ul took it and immediately fed it into the Lord's Castle of Illusions. 1 special soul stone sold. The Sovereign has issued your rewards. 1 special space development ticket, 1 premium draw ticket. Reward 4,000 gold. Due to a shortage of funds in the Lord's Castle, gold will be distributed at a later time. Elite monster Zen Karuk has been added to the Lord's Castle. Zen Karuk can be deployed during defense battles. After confirming all the rewards, Han Ul made his way back to where everyone had gathered. Thank you so much. We're only alive because of you. The others had lost their ability to fight, but fortunately everyone had survived. When Kwang Su saw Han Ul return, he struggled to his feet and slowly walked toward him. Mr. Han Ul. Seeing his expression, Han Ul thought to himself, what's this guy up to now? Please don't do something embarrassing. But the next second, Kwang Su dropped to his knees. I truly cannot thank you enough for saving my life. I sincerely apologize for all the trouble I caused you. Thank you for saving me and my guild members. You don't have to do this. Saving people is just part of being a hunter. Now get up. The others are about to come around. You don't want them seeing you like this. Those words clearly meant a lot to Kwang Su. I will repay this debt no matter what it takes. Congratulations on clearing this trial. All surviving challengers will receive rewards. You may now choose to exit or press deeper into the dungeon. Challengers who have lost consciousness will be automatically withdrawn. Kwang Su asked Han Ul which he was going to choose. I still have unfinished business here, so I'm going deeper. Kwang Su didn't understand. Shouldn't you go out and regroup first? I'll help you take on this dungeon together after. I appreciate it, but I've got my own backup. As he said that, Odolph and Gano stepped out side by side. The moment Kwang Su laid eyes on Odolph's terrifying face, he was scared out of his mind. He scrambled backward several steps to put some distance between them. I see you really don't need any help. Ding! All challengers have made their selections, initiating withdrawal for eliminated participants. After a brief farewell, the Bulgul Guild members stepped through the portal and left the dungeon. Congratulations on completing the hidden quest. Suppress the source of the trial. Special reward obtained. Meanwhile, back at the Pungbeg Guild headquarters. You're saying we absolutely need to recruit Kim Han-ul? Yes, I've looked into him. His potential is enormous. But Kang Wu shot it down without hesitation. The Pungbeg Guild is already the strongest of the three. We don't need to recruit unproven rookies. We have more than enough on our plate right now, so. Just then, a phone on the table lit up. Warning! A red flag dungeon has appeared. An emergency disaster alert. Something had gone wrong with the nearby dungeon. And the dungeon that triggered the red flag was the Garden of Meditation, the one Han-ul was in. Officials had taken over the site and placed it under emergency lockdown. Kang Wu rushed to the scene with the Yoon siblings in tow. The dungeon has a high probability of going critical. Citizens are being evacuated. The Pungbeg Guild is requested to respond if an emergency occurs. Wait, what happened to the hunters inside the dungeon? We've confirmed that 6 hunters have already exited the dungeon. According to them, there is one more still inside, and they appear to have gone to the deepest part. Just then, a broad figure walked over. Ma Dongpal, S rank, Guild Master of the Segis Guild, Guildmaster of Pungbeg, long time no see. What do you make of the hunter who went deeper into the dungeon? But before Kang Wu could answer, another voice cut in. It's quite likely the dungeon's instability was caused by that person. Sanarai, S rank, Guildmaster of the Sanarai Guild. All 3 guild masters of the top guilds had gathered in one place. After all, no one had ever made it to the deepest part of this dungeon. That's certainly the most likely explanation. But who exactly is the hunter that went in? At that moment, a staff member ran over. We've confirmed the identity of the hunter who entered the deepest zone. According to the survivors, the one who stayed behind alone in the dungeon is S rank hunter Kim Han-ul.